The pristine asphalt of Redline Speedway glistened under the summer sun as teams prepared for the annual Bridgestone Regional Championships. The paddock buzzed with activity, mechanics fine-tuning cars, drivers in branded suits giving interviews, and spectators gathering for glimpses of their favorite champions. This wasn't just any race. It was where amateur racers could catch sponsors' eyes and potentially launch professional careers. The air smelled of burnt rubber and ambition, with the distinctive sounds of revving engines providing a constant backdrop. Among the racing enthusiasts stood Eliza Mitchell, a 34-year-old woman with chestnut hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Unlike competitors with their sponsored gear and support teams, Eliza wore simple jeans, a faded blue t-shirt, and carried a worn backpack. Her second-hand helmet looked painfully out of place in this world of pristine equipment and corporate logos. Several spectators gave her curious glances, quickly dismissing her as someone's girlfriend or perhaps a journalist covering the event. As Eliza approached registration, conversation quieted. The official, a man with a meticulously groomed mustache, looked up with barely concealed skepticism. His name badge identified him as Trevor, competition director. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone suggesting she might be lost. "I'm here to register for tomorrow's qualifying round," Eliza replied, sliding her application across the desk. "I submitted my entry online last week." The official's eyebrows rose as he glanced between her and the form. "You're entering the open division? Not the women's exhibition race?" The women's exhibition was essentially a sideshow rather than legitimate competition, offering no championship points and minimal prestige. "The open division," Eliza confirmed, her voice calm but firm. A slight tension around her eyes was the only indication that she'd heard this question countless times before. The exchange drew attention from nearby competitors, including Jackson Reed, the reigning three-time Bridgestone champion. His racing suit, emblazoned with logos from Red Bull, Pennzoil, and his family's auto parts chain, emphasized the gulf between them. At 29, Reed had dominated the regional circuit, his aggressive driving style and media-friendly personality making him a favorite with sponsors and fans alike. "There must be some mistake," Jackson interrupted, stepping forward with casual confidence. Several other drivers gathered behind him, their expressions ranging from amusement to outright derision. "The open division requires documented track experience. It's not for beginners." His gaze drifted pointedly to her worn helmet. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. Eliza remained composed. Though a muscle twitched in her jaw, she'd anticipated this reception, but experiencing it firsthand still stung. "My qualifications were verified during registration," she stated. "I have the confirmation email if needed." The official reluctantly confirmed she was listed, but Mr. Reed does have a point about experience requirements. "What car are you even driving?" Jackson challenged, folding his arms across his chest, his championship ring gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "A 2007 Mazda MX-5. Eliza replied without hesitation. This triggered outright laughter from several bystanders. The Mazda MX-5, while respected as an entry-level sports car, was hopelessly outmatched against the modified BMWs, Porsches, and purpose-built race cars dominating the division. In motorsport hierarchy, her choice of vehicle was equivalent to bringing a knife to a gunfight. "Look, sweetheart," Jackson said, condescension barely masked by false concern. "That little hairdresser's car wouldn't last 3 laps at race pace. I'm just trying to save you from embarrassment and keep the track safe for serious drivers. The crowd's reaction emboldened him further. Tell you what, why don't you watch from our pit tomorrow? You'll get a better understanding of what real racing looks like. He gestured toward his elaborate team setup, complete with telemetry screens and professional mechanics. Eliza's smile never reached her eyes. Thank you for your concern, but I'll take my chances on track. Jackson shrugged dramatically for his audience's benefit. Your funeral? Don't say I didn't warn you when you're getting lapped by the entire field. As Eliza walked away with her confirmed entry, she heard the continued laughter behind her. It wasn't anything she hadn't expected, but their dismissal reinforced her resolve. They had no idea who they were dealing with, and that was exactly how she wanted it. What Jackson and the snickering crowd couldn't know was that Eliza Mitchell was once known as the Ghost, a nickname earned during her meteoric rise through European karting championships and Junior Formula Series a decade earlier. Back then, Eliza Donovan, her maiden name, had been on a trajectory toward professional racing. Her natural talent drawing attention from team managers and sponsors alike, her ability to seemingly appear in opponents' mirrors out of nowhere, making impossible passes in conditions that intimidated seasoned drivers, had earned her the spectral moniker. That promising career ended abruptly during a rain-soaked qualifying session at Monza when her teammate, pressured by team orders to outperform her, caused a catastrophic crash that left Eliza with a shattered leg and fractured vertebrae. The physical recovery took 18 months, but the psychological wounds cut deeper. The team buried evidence of their illegal instructions, leaving Eliza portrayed as an inexperienced female driver who had pushed beyond her capabilities. The betrayal, combined with the racing world's eagerness to make her the cautionary tale of why women couldn't compete, drove Eliza from professional racing entirely. She changed her name after marriage, moved back to America, and buried that part of her identity until her divorce last year reignited something she'd suppressed for too long. For months, she had practiced at small, remote tracks, rediscovering her skills while staying off the radar. This championship wasn't chosen randomly. Jackson Reed's uncle, Gerald Reed, had been the team manager who orchestrated her downfall. The Reed racing dynasty had profited from her destruction, building their empire partly on sponsorships once destined for her. Their family-owned performance parts business had exploded in growth shortly after the accident, fueled by deals that materialized suspiciously quickly. Before her career was derailed, Eliza had been on the verge of becoming the first woman to secure a development driver role with a Formula One team. 3 major sponsors had been in final negotiations when the crash at Monza changed everything. Within weeks, those same sponsors had mysteriously signed with Reed Performance Technologies, the family business that supplied parts to several racing teams. The timing had been too convenient to be coincidental. But a traumatized Eliza had been in no position to fight back then. Throughout her rehabilitation, she'd received only one message from her former team, a legal document releasing her from her contract due to inability to perform. The industry had quickly closed ranks, treating her as if she had never existed. Racing journalists, who had once hailed her as the sport's bright female hope, now wrote patronizing pieces about her brave attempt at competing in a man's world. The narrative had been carefully crafted. She had crashed because women couldn't handle the pressure of top-tier competition. As Eliza continued through the paddock, she noticed a middle-aged man watching her intently. Marco Rossi, former Formula One mechanic turned racing instructor, was the only person at Redline who might recognize her. Their eyes met briefly, his widening slightly in apparent recognition before he gave an almost imperceptible nod. In the practiced movement of her walk, balanced, precise, with the subtle weight shift characteristic of professional drivers, there was evidence of her true identity for those who knew what to look for. But years of hiding had made Eliza excellent at blending in. She'd learned that sometimes invisibility was the most powerful position from which to strike. Qualifying day dawned with ominous clouds hanging low over Redline Speedway. The air felt heavy with impending rain, conditions that separated truly skilled drivers from those who merely performed well in ideal circumstances. Teams made last-minute adjustments, some switching to wet weather setups in anticipation of changing conditions. Team managers huddled over weather radar images on tablets, strategizing about optimal qualifying windows. Eliza arrived early, her modest Mazda drawing dismissive glances as she parked among specialized transporters. Unlike yesterday, she wore a plain black racing suit with no sponsorship patches, another oddity that didn't go unnoticed. Professional suits typically resembled NASCAR drivers, covered in logos. Her unadorned appearance reinforced the perception she was an outsider. "Need help finding the spectator entrance?" called a mechanic from Reed Racing's elaborate setup, triggering laughter from nearby team members. A few spectators within earshot joined in, eager to align themselves with the established hierarchy. Eliza ignored the comment, methodically preparing her car with practiced precision. Her movements, checking tire pressures, adjusting brake bias, inspecting suspension components, betrayed a familiarity that would have raised questions among more observant competitors. But most were too busy dismissing her to notice these subtle tells. During the driver's briefing, Eliza sat alone at the back while others clustered in team groups. Jackson held court at the front, surrounded by admirers and competitors seeking his approval. The race director explained the qualifying format: 2 20-minute sessions, with fastest times determining the starting grid for tomorrow's race. "Remember," the director emphasized, looking directly at Eliza, "if you can't maintain minimum safe speeds, you'll be black flagged." Jackson smirked, turning to ensure others caught his reaction. The message was clear: no one expected her to meet even basic requirements. As qualifying began, light rain started falling, creating treacherous conditions. Most drivers approached their first laps cautiously, feeling out grip levels on the dampening surface. Jackson, confident in his superior equipment and skill, pushed hard immediately, setting a benchmark time that put him provisionally on pole position. His red and white BMW slid dramatically through several corners, but his quick reaction prevented disaster. Eliza waited in pit lane, watching timing screens while other competitors completed early laps. A small crowd gathered near her pit box. Drawn by the novelty of the lady driver, they expected to embarrass herself. Several had phones ready to capture any potential mistake. When most cars had completed at least one timed lap, she finally pulled onto the track. From the first corner, it was evident to knowledgeable observers that something was different about Eliza's driving. While her Mazda lacked the raw power of the frontrunner's machines, her racing line was impeccable, hitting every apex with precision that spoke of years of experience. Most telling was her comfort in wet conditions, where others fought their cars through corners. Eliza's movements were smooth and controlled, almost like a choreographed dance between driver and machine. In the commentary booth, the local announcer initially made jokes about the girl in the Mazda, but his tone shifted as her sector times appeared on his monitor. The first sector showed her matching times with drivers in cars with significantly more power. "That's unexpected," he commented, as Eliza completed her first flying lap with a time that placed her 12th in the 20-car field, significantly better than anticipated from her underpowered car. Mitchell in the Mazda is showing remarkable pace considering her equipment disadvantage. His co-commentator, a retired driver, leaned forward to study the timing screens more carefully. Look at her minimum corner speeds. They're higher than anyone else in the midfield. That's not the car doing the work, that's pure driver talent. Whoever this woman is, she knows exactly what she's doing. As word spread through the paddock, a small crowd began to gather at various vantage points, watching with increasing fascination as the mysterious woman in the underpowered Mazda continued to defy expectations. Several team managers pulled out stopwatches, personally timing her sector performances with growing disbelief. Down in the Reed racing pit, Jackson's father, Gerald Reed, watched the timing screen with growing concern. Something about the driving style triggered a distant memory. He grabbed binoculars to observe Eliza's technique more closely as she navigated the complex series of corners on the backstretch. "No way," he muttered, lowering the binoculars slowly. "It can't be her." His face had paled slightly, and he gestured urgently for Jackson's race engineer. "Get me everything you can find on this Mitchell woman," he ordered. "Background checks, previous racing history, everything. And I want her car torn apart in inspection after qualifying." The engineer looked puzzled but nodded. "Something specific we're looking for." "Seal?" Gerald's eyes never left the monitor, showing Eliza's progress around the track. "Just do it. There's something not right about this." As qualifying progressed, the rain intensified, creating increasingly difficult conditions. Several drivers spun off, including two inexpensive Porsche GT3s who damaged their cars beyond repair for the weekend. Yet Eliza's times continued to improve, her Mazda dancing through sections where more powerful cars struggled for traction. By session's end, she had qualified in 8th position, an achievement that defied all expectations given her car's limitations. The paddock buzzed with speculation. Was her car illegally modified? Had she somehow gotten special tires? No one considered the simplest explanation, that they were witnessing exceptional driving skill. Jackson maintained pole position, but his final margin was smaller than predicted. His post-qualifying media session took an unexpected turn when a reporter asked about Eliza's surprising performance. "Probably just got lucky with the rain," Jackson dismissed with practice charm. "These conditions are great equalizers. They can make mediocre drivers look better than they are. Tomorrow's race is 2 hours long." Consistency separates professionals from weekend warriors behind the cameras. However, Jackson was less composed. "I want her car checked thoroughly," he instructed his chief mechanic. "There's no way that Mazda is legal. Check the engine, suspension, everything." Meanwhile, Eliza was methodically reviewing data logs on a laptop. Isolated from post-qualifying activities, the few journalists who approached received polite but minimal responses, her focus remaining on preparation rather than publicity. This behavior further fueled speculation. Established drivers recognized the actions of a serious competitor, not an attention-seeking amateur. As she packed up her equipment, Marco Rossi finally approached, speaking quietly in Italian. "È davvero tu? Il fantasma? È passato molto tempo. Is it really you? The ghost? It's been a long time." Eliza's eyes darted around quickly, ensuring no one was within earshot before responding in the same language. "I didn't think anyone would remember that name." Marco studied her face carefully. "Some legends don't die easily. The question is, why return now?" in this backwater race? And in a Mazda. Of all things, sometimes ghosts come back, she replied, a hint of steel entering her voice. Especially when they have unfinished business. Marco's expression grew serious. They're already talking about inspecting your car. Reed's people are pushing for a full teardown. Eliza nodded. Having anticipated this, let them. They won't find anything because there's nothing to find. The car is completely legal. That's part of the point. You know they'll do anything to stop you. Marco warned. The Reeds have too much at stake to let an unknown woman embarrass their star driver. I'm counting on it. Elisa replied, her voice low but determined. Because this time, I'm ready for their tactics. As evening fell over the speedway, technicians conducted a thorough inspection of Eliza's Mazda under the watchful eyes of Reed Racing representatives. Despite their hopes, they found nothing that violated regulations. The car was completely stock, apart from standard safety modifications and legal suspension adjustments. The head technical inspector signed off on the car's compliance, much to the visible frustration of Gerald Reed, who had personally overseen the process. After the inspection, several drivers who had previously ignored Eliza approached her with newfound respect, curious about her background. A young rookie named Tyler Adams was particularly impressed. That was some serious driving out there, he said, extending his hand. Where did you learn to drive like that in the wet? Eliza offered a modest smile. I've had some experience in Europe. Must have been quite the experience, Tyler replied, clearly curious but respectful enough not to press further when Eliza didn't elaborate. Well, good luck tomorrow. Some of us will be watching with interest. Later that night, while other drivers attended the pre-race social event at Redline's clubhouse, Eliza sat alone in her hotel room, studying track maps and weather forecasts. The race tomorrow would be challenging. Maintaining position against superior machinery would require perfect execution and strategic brilliance. Her concentration was interrupted by a knock at the door. Opening it, she found Marco Rossi. His expression a mixture of disbelief and concern. They are saying your car passed inspection, he said without preamble. Gerald Reed is furious. Eliza invited him in, closing the door before responding. Good. Let him be furious. It's only the beginning. Marco studied her face carefully. Why now? Eliza, after all these years? You disappeared so completely that most people think you died in that crash. Because some truths need to see the light, she replied, her finger tracing a particular section of the track on her map, and because they've had it coming for a very long time. Their conversation was interrupted by another knock, this one more forceful. Eliza opened the door to find Gerald Reed standing there, his imposing figure filling the doorway. We need to talk, he said, pushing past her into the room. He stopped short upon seeing Marco, recognition flashing across his features. Rossi? I should have known you'd be involved in this. Stunt. It's no stunt. Gerald. Eliza replied calmly. Just a qualified driver entering a race. Gerald's face hardened. The practice charm he displayed in public completely absent. Listen carefully. I've built everything on this racing program. Jackson is 3 races away from a national sponsorship deal that will launch him to the next level. I won't let some washed-up has-been with a vendetta derail that. Interesting choice of words, Eliza observed coldly. Considering it was your direct orders that caused my actual derailment at Monza. A flash of panic crossed Gerald's face, quickly replaced by calculated anger. No one would believe you. That was years ago. In another country. I have the radio recordings, Eliza said quietly. Your voice, telling my teammate to do whatever it takes to ensure I didn't outqualify your driver. Gerald's expression darkened further. Threats won't work. Withdraw now, while you still can. Or I'll make sure you regret it. He turned to leave, pausing at the door. And Eliza, some crashes don't need to be arranged. Racing is dangerous. Accidents happen. After he left, Marco looked at Eliza with concern. That was a threat. You should report him. Eliza shook her head. Not yet. First, I need to win tomorrow's race. Then we'll see who's making threats. She pulled out a small digital recorder from her jacket pocket. Besides, I just got his threat on tape. Insurance. In case anything happens tomorrow. Marco's eyes widened. You were expecting him to come here? I was counting on it. Eliza replied. Gerald Reed has always been predictable when he feels threatened. His ego won't let him ignore a challenge, especially from someone he thought he'd destroyed. She returned to her track notes. But Marco wasn't finished. There's more to this than just proving you can still drive. Isn't there? Eliza was silent for a long moment before responding. After my crash, I lost everything, my career, my reputation, my future. 3 major sponsorships that were about to sign with me suddenly went to Reed Performance Technologies. My team abandoned me. And the racing world wrote me off as just another woman who couldn't handle the pressure. Her voice hardened. But the worst part was that I believed it. For years, I accepted their narrative that I wasn't good enough. She looked up at Marco, her eyes reflecting a determination born from years of silent suffering. This isn't just about a race. It's about reclaiming my story. Morning broke with clear skies. The track dry after overnight drainage, perfect racing conditions favoring more powerful cars. Technical inspection had cleared Eliza's Mazda, finding no violations despite Reed Racing's protests. The atmosphere in the paddock was charged with tension. What had begun as amusement at a woman's audacity had transformed into unease at the unknown quantity in their midst. Eliza arrived early. Her pre-race routine, methodical and focused. She avoided the traditional driver's parade, instead using those minutes for final mental preparation. This strategic absence only heightened the mystique building around her. Spectators, having heard about yesterday's qualifying performance, sought glimpses of the Mazda woman who had infiltrated the traditionally male-dominated grid. In the Reed Racing garage, Jackson received final instructions from his father. This shouldn't even be a competition, Gerald insisted, checking that no one could overhear. Your car has 100 more horsepower and better aerodynamics. Just get ahead early and stay there. Make it look definitive. What remained unspoken was the additional pressure. Several potential national sponsors had representatives attending specifically to evaluate Jackson's performance. The narrative of dominating regional competition was central to their marketing strategy. An upset would raise unwelcome questions. As drivers took their positions on the starting grid, the announcer highlighted the David versus Goliath nature of the upcoming battle. In 8th position, the unexpected qualifier Eliza Mitchell in a stock Mazda MX-5, perhaps the most remarkable qualifying performance we've seen at Redline in years. Can she maintain that position against far more powerful machinery in dry conditions? Jackson, sitting in his car at the front of the grid, adjusted his mirrors to catch a glimpse of Eliza 8 rows back. For the first time, a flicker of genuine concern crossed his features. Something about her, the calm efficiency of her race preparation, the precision of her qualifying laps, had begun to pierce his confidence. The starting lights blinked out, and 20 engines roared as the field launched toward the first corner. Jackson executed a perfect start, pulling away cleanly while chaos erupted behind him. Two cars collided mid-pack, forcing others to take evasive action. Elisa, demonstrating lightning reflexes, navigated through the melee with surgical precision, emerging in sixth position by the end of the first lap. In the commentary booth, the announcers struggled to contain their excitement. Mitchell in the Mazda has gained 2 positions already. She's driving like someone with years of professional experience, not an unknown qualifier. By lap 10, the race had settled into a rhythm. Jackson led comfortably, followed by his teammate and 3 other professional drivers in powerful GT cars. Eliza maintained 6th position, defying physics and expectations, as she kept pace with machines that should have easily outclassed her Mazda. Her racing line was immaculate, maximizing corner speed to compensate for her power disadvantage on the straights. The first strategic moment came when light rain began falling on the back section of the track. While most frontrunners pitted immediately for wet tires, Eliza stayed out, correctly calculating that the shower would pass quickly. This decision, born of experience rather than luck, gained her 3 positions when the track rapidly dried and the early pitters had to stop again for dry tires. Suddenly, inexplicably, Eliza Mitchell was running in 3rd position, with only Jackson Reed and 1 other car ahead of her. The crowd, initially drawn by curiosity, was now fully invested in her pursuit. In the grandstands, phones recorded the unfolding drama, while social media buzzed with clips of the mystery woman challenging established champions. In the Reed Racing pit box, Gerald's expression darkened as he watched the gap between Jackson and Eliza steadily shrink. With each lap, she was gaining fractionally in the technical sections of the track. He grabbed the radio, his knuckles white. "Jackson, that Mazda is closing on you. Pick up the pace." "Now, I'm pushing as hard as I can," came the strained reply. "There's something wrong. The car doesn't feel right in the corners." The frustration in Jackson's voice was evident. He'd never been challenged like this on his home track, especially not by an unknown driver in vastly inferior equipment. With 20 minutes remaining in the 2-hour race, disaster struck the leader. Jackson's aggressive pace had overtaxed his brakes, causing a catastrophic failure as he entered the fastest corner on the track. His car slid wide, crashing heavily into the tire barrier. Though he emerged uninjured, his race was over, and with it, potentially, the sponsorship deals his father had arranged. This left Eliza in 2nd position, 12 seconds behind the new leader, but with clearly superior pace. The crowd, initially drawn by curiosity, was now fully invested in her pursuit. With each passing lap, she chipped away at the gap, her driving displaying a level of skill that transformed skepticism into admiration. In the Reed Racing pit, Gerald watched with mounting horror as his carefully constructed narrative unraveled. His son's failure combined with Eliza's extraordinary performance threatened everything he had built and potentially exposed secrets long buried. 3 laps remaining, and Mitchell has reduced the gap to just 4 seconds. The commentator announced, his voice rising with excitement. "We're witnessing something truly remarkable today at Redline Speedway." On the penultimate lap, Eliza caught the leader in the technical section, executing a breathtaking overtaking maneuver that drew gasps from the crowd. As she took the lead, Marco Rossi smiled knowingly in the pit lane, watching his former protégé reclaim her rightful place in racing history. When Eliza crossed the finish line, the crowd erupted in a way Redline Speedway had rarely witnessed. This wasn't just an unexpected victory, It was a redemption story unfolding before their eyes. Even if most didn't know the full context, as she parked in victory lane and removed her helmet, revealing a face flushed with triumph, but composed with dignity. Cameras captured every moment. The post-race interview would normally focus on the win, but one veteran motorsport journalist approached with a different question. Miss Mitchell, or should I say, Miss Donovan? Some of us remember a promising career cut short years ago. Is today's victory a comeback, or a goodbye? Eliza's smile contained equal measures of satisfaction and resolve. Neither, she replied. Consider it a beginning. In the paddock, Gerald Reed watched the celebration with bitter recognition. The ghost from his past hadn't just returned. She had exposed the truth without speaking a word. The racing world would now remember who Eliza Donovan was, and start asking questions about why she had disappeared in the first place. As the podium celebration concluded, Eliza found herself surrounded by journalists, all suddenly eager to hear the story of the unknown driver who had triumphed against overwhelming odds. Among them was Catherine Chen, a respected motorsport reporter who had covered European racing during Eliza's earlier career. I thought I recognized that driving style, Catherine said, her recorder held discreetly. The ghost lives after all. Care to tell our readers where you've been all these years? Before Eliza could respond, Jackson Reed pushed through the crowd, his race suit still dusty from his earlier crash. His expression was a mixture of disbelief and grudging respect. I don't know who you really are, he said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. But that was some serious driving today. My father may have issues with you. But, he extended his hand, you earned that win fair and square. The gesture, captured by dozens of cameras, created an immediate stir. Eliza accepted the handshake, recognizing that Jackson himself had likely been unaware of his father's machinations years ago. Thank you, she replied simply. Your father and I have some history that predates your career. Don't let it become your burden. As Jackson moved away, Eliza caught sight of Gerald Reed watching from the edge of the paddock, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. Their eyes met briefly before he turned away, already on his phone, undoubtedly attempting damage control with the sponsors who had witnessed his son's defeat. Later that evening, as the track fell quiet and teams packed up their equipment, Eliza sat alone in the now empty pit lane, savoring the day's victory. The sound of approaching footsteps broke her reverie. Marco Rossi joined her, carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. I just saw 3 different team managers asking about you, he said, handing her a cup. Word is spreading fast about who you really are. Eliza nodded, taking a sip. I expected as much. So what now? Marco asked. One regional win is satisfying. But with your talent, there are opportunities. I have contacts who would be very interested in a driver with your abilities. Elisa smiled, looking out at the darkened track. First, I need to make sure the truth about what happened at Monza comes to light. I've already sent the recordings to several journalists, including that threat Gerald made last night. She turned to Marco. After that, we'll see. One race at a time. The following week, motorsport news outlets were filled with headlines about the mysterious return of Eliza, the Ghost Donovan. Online videos of her incredible drive in the underpowered Mazda went viral, accumulating millions of views. But the biggest story broke 3 days after the race. Scandal in racing. Reed dynasty built on sabotage. The article detailed the events at Monza years earlier, complete with the recently released radio recordings proving team orders to deliberately impede Eliza. The motorsport governing body announced an immediate investigation, while several sponsors suspended their relationships with Reed Performance Technologies pending the outcome. Jackson Reed, upon learning the full story, publicly distanced himself from his father's actions, announcing he would compete independently going forward. For Elisa, this vindication was sweeter than any trophy. As she prepared for her next race, this time with proper sponsorship offers from companies eager to associate with her compelling story, she knew that regardless of the result, she had already won the most important victory, reclaiming her truth and rewriting the narrative that had defined her for too long. Some stories of redemption end with a single victory, but as Eliza packed her racing gear for the next challenge, it was clear this story was just beginning. The ghost had returned, not to haunt the past, but to race toward a future that had been denied her and to inspire others who had been told they didn't belong. 6 months later, the landscape of regional racing had transformed dramatically. The Reed Racing dynasty had crumbled under the weight of the investigation, with Gerald Reed facing criminal charges for fraud and sports manipulation after further evidence emerged beyond the Monza incident. Former team members, emboldened by Eliza's stand, had come forward with additional accounts of unethical practices spanning years. Jackson Reed, who had genuinely been unaware of his father's machinations, underwent his own journey of redemption. Initially devastated by the revelations, he'd eventually reached out to Eliza for a private conversation. "I wanted to apologize," he'd told her over coffee at a quiet diner far from the racing circuit, "not just for how I treated you that first day, but for benefiting from what my father did to your career all those years ago." "You didn't know?" Elisa had replied. "Maybe not the specifics, but I grew up in that environment. Deep down, I think I always sensed something wasn't right about our family's success." He'd paused, struggling with the admission. "It's hard to realize everything you've achieved might be built on someone else's destroyed dreams." That conversation had marked the beginning of an unexpected alliance. Now, as Eliza's new racing team prepared for the national championships, Jackson served as her strategy coach, his experience with the politics of high-level competition complementing her natural driving talent. The motorsport media had dubbed them the Redemption Team, a narrative that sponsors found irresistible. But for Eliza, the most meaningful consequence of her return went beyond personal vindication or commercial success. At regional tracks across the country, female participation in competitive racing had surged dramatically. Young women who had previously been directed toward exhibition events now demanded equal treatment in the open divisions. Many cited Eliza's story as their inspiration, not just her victory in an underpowered car, but her refusal to accept the narrative others had written for her. Today, as Eliza adjusted her helmet before qualifying for the national championship finals, a young girl approached the pit barrier, clutching a program for an autograph. "My dad says you changed everything," the girl said as Eliza signed. "He says before you came back, he wouldn't have let me race with the boys. But now I'm winning." Elisa smiled, recognizing in the girl's determined expression the same fire that had sustained her through years of exile and return. "Remember," she told the young racer, "it's never about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right." As she walked to her car, no longer an underestimated Mazda, but a competitive machine worthy of her talents, Eliza caught sight of Marco watching from the pit wall. He gave her a thumbs up, a gesture that encompassed everything they'd been through to reach this moment. The journey from disgraced former prodigy to vindicated champion had been long and painful, but standing on the starting grid, surrounded by competitors who now regarded her with respect rather than dismissal, Eliza knew that some victories transcended trophies and champagne. Some victories rewrote the rules entirely. The 5 red lights illuminated sequentially above the starting line. Eliza took a deep breath, hands gripping the wheel. Her focus absolute. This was where she belonged, not defined by the past. But racing toward a future, she was finally free to create on her own terms. The lights went out. The roar of engines filled the air. And the ghost, no longer hidden, no longer haunted, launched forward into her rightful place in racing history.